Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel called Zuzanareacts, where I learn all things para. With your help, and I just share my Slovak Central European point of view. In today's video, I'm actually very excited. I was being sent a very interesting video about decoding Gita through Matrix. So I think this is going to be a bit more on a spiritual note, but nonetheless sounds pretty fascinating to me just from the title itself. So I am super stoked to watch this with you. But before we get into this video,
please like this video and click on the subscribe button and turn on the notification. Thank you so much for your support.
Okay, we have 45 minutes ahead of us. So I hope you get some popcorn on and we just start right off. Bhagavad-Gita. I still can't pronounce it. I got this book. This is what I'm reading. I did not know it was in Bhagavad-Gita. Open your eyes. Spend your challenge your thoughts. Okay. I mean, if you're in these publications, I would say you've maybe part
Hi,
of
my name is Pandit, and today we'll be comparing the Bhagavad-Gita, which is an ancient spiritual text of India, and the very popular sci-fi movie, The Matrix. The Bhagavad-Gita literally means a song of God.
Oh.
And I came across it about 20 years ago during a very difficult time in my life, a time of great confusion, great uncertainty. I wasn't clear about what the purpose of my life was. And at that time, the Bhagavad Gita really spoke to me in a very powerful way. It gave me guidance on how I should move forward in my life. And then a few years later, I came across the movie The Matrix. And I was so surprised that I could actually relate to the character, the main character of the movie Neo. And I'm sure many of us can relate to the character of Neo in some way or another, because he's also going through a journey. He's trying to figure out what's real, what's not, and what his purpose is. The very first comparison that we're going to look at is the concept of the spiritual seeker. And I feel like there's a spiritual seeker inside all of us to some degree or another. Neo is the seeker in the Matrix, and Arjuna is the seeker in the Bhagavad-Gita. So we're going to analyze both of these characters. We're also going to analyze the nature of a spiritual teacher or guru. In the Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna plays the role of a guru for his friend Arjuna. And in the movie The Matrix, Morpheus plays the role of guru or teacher for Neo. We're also going to analyze the nature of what's real and what's not. It's a major theme of the movie The Matrix is Neo is looking to understand what is reality and what's not real. And same thing is happening for Arjuna. He's trying to understand what the bigger purpose in life is. And one of the final concepts that we're going to explore is the concept of free will. Does a living being actually have free will, or is everything predestined? And we're kind of moving around like robots. The seeker from the Bhagavad-Gita is Arjuna, and the seeker in the Matrix is Neo. They both share something very interesting in common. They're both looking for answers, and not just simple everyday answers. They're looking for answers about the bigger things in life. Arjuna is on a battlefield, and his dilemma is tremendous because he's fighting for his kingdom, he's fighting for his life. But the unfortunate thing is he has to contend with people on the other side who are his family members, their cousins, their uncles, their friends, their mentors, they're even his teachers and gurus. He looks on the other side of the battlefield and he sees all of these incredible people he grew up with, people who cared for him and people he cared for. And now, unfortunately, they're both on opposite sides. And now he has to go into battle with them and kill them for a throne. He's very reluctant to engage in this battle. He's almost willing to just give up the kingdom and live in the forest. But he knows that that's not a solution because he already tried to live in the forest and his family members were trying to kill him and his brothers. So he knows that the only way for him to have a peaceful life is to go through with this battle. But right before the battle, as he's looking at the family members on the other side ready to fight, ready to kill him, he has a bit of a mental breakdown. He just can't believe that they're ready to do this, and he's not willing to do this. At the same time, he knows he can't walk away from this battlefield. So he has to make a decision. When we look at Neo, his decision may not be as severe, but he also is very uninspired and unmotivated by what he sees around him and by the nature of reality that he's seeing and experiencing. He's constantly looking for the truth. He wants to know if the life that he's living is real or is there something else out there. He's also very confused, uncertain, unmotivated, uninspired, and he's also looking for answers. So there's a certain mindset that I feel a seeker has in common. And that mindset comes into place because of certain situations that happen in our life, certain unpredictable, unexpected situations that happen that kind of humble us. And then we become open to receiving answers, especially if we're no longer able to find the answers through our own intellect, through our own connections, through our own financial stability. If none of these are able to help us find the answers and get clarity, that's when we go deep within inside ourselves and do some real soul searching to figure out why this is happening to me and how do I overcome all of this. So the seeker's mindset is usually coming about from a distressing or a difficult situation that's taking place in one's life in which one is no longer really able to find a solution with their own intellectual or material facilities. One of the first scenes of the movie The Matrix, we find Neo sleeping at his desk. Not really sleeping at his desk, but exhausted because he's looking for something on the internet. He's looking for the alternate reality. And while he's sleeping, 3 words pop up on his screen. And these are very, very important words. And the words are, "Wake up, Neo." So the words "wake up" are extremely significant. They have a variety of meanings that we could interpret from these words. Ultimately, within the teachings of the Bhagavad-Gita and broader Hinduism, it's suggested that we are all, to some degree or another, asleep, even right now. Even as you're watching this video, to some degree or another, you are asleep. When you go grocery shopping, to some degree, you're asleep. When you go to work, to some degree, you're asleep. When you're driving your car, when you're paying your taxes, when you're taking care of your kids, when you're using the bathroom, during all of these activities, we are kind of asleep. It's very similar to the whole idea of sleepwalking. When someone is sleepwalking, the question is, are they asleep or are they awake? A lot of times people will say, oh, they're asleep, because that's why we call it sleepwalking. And some people will say, well, they're awake. But actually, it's neither one. If they're asleep, then how can they walk around and interact with their environment? I know people who, when they sleepwalk, they try to walk out of their house in the middle of the night, not knowing that they're doing that until somebody tells them that that's what they did. I know other people who go to the kitchen while they're sleepwalking in the middle of the night, make a sandwich. So yes, we're asleep. We're not fully aware what we're doing, but we're engaging with the items and things in our surroundings in a perfectly normal way. But when we wake up, we don't realize that we were doing all of these things. So it's an in-between state. We're partly asleep, we're not aware, but we're also awake so that we can interact with others. And these words wake up are suggesting, encouraging us to be fully awake and not live our life as if we're sleepwalking. Because to some degree or another, we are living our life right now as if we're sleepwalking, not fully conscious of the things around us, the people around us, and our ultimate goal of life. After these three words, wake up Neo, appear on his screen, Neo hears a knock at his door. And there's some people there that he does some business with, and then they invite him to a nightclub. When he goes to the nightclub, he's standing kind of by himself, leaning up against the wall, not interacting with anyone, till a lady approaches him. And this lady is Trinity. And upon meeting her, Neo understands that this is the lady who was typing on his screen the words, wake up Neo. So he understood this was her trying to reach out to him. And then Trinity tells him, I know why you're here. And she says that the answer is out there, and it will find you if you want it to. She also says, it's the question that drives us, Neo. It's the question that brought you here. So I think this is very significant and very deep and very profound, because there are many questions that drive us as humanity. Big questions about life. Questions like, who am I? Really, who am I beyond this body? Beyond the skin and the bones and the hair? Who am I? How did I get here? Really, how did I get here? Who put me here the way that I am? Where was this plan? How did this plan come about that I look the way I look and I took birth from these parents in this country, in this religion, with this skin color and this gender? Like, how did all of this happen? And another big question that drives us is, what is my purpose in life? What am I meant to do for the rest of my life? What direction should I go in? And of course, another really big question that drives us as humanity is, what happens at the time of death? It's a big one. Whether we like to admit it or not, this question is kind of in the back of our mind quite a bit. You can't escape it. Every time you turn on the news, there's news of somebody dying, or sometimes there's news of lots of people dying because of some conflict or disagreement taking place. And it's very natural for us to wonder, is death really the end? Does something happen after we die? What happens? Do we continue to live on? Or is that the end of our very existence? And we will no longer exist? We will cease to exist completely? Will we go to a heaven? Will we go to a hell? Is there going to be nothing? Do we take birth again? Like the Hindu and Buddhists say, that will we reincarnate into this world as a human being, as an animal, as a plant? What's going to happen after death? Because there's an underlying fear we all have of death, because it's going to separate us from everything in this world that we've come to like and appreciate and love.
Okay, I'll stop here. I was trying to see where I could stop. It's interesting when he's discussing the point of questions, because when I was at the university years ago, part of my degree, I had to do a year course in philosophy. And because the faculty was called philosophical faculty, blah, blah. So you had it a compulsory. And I think it was mentioned there, I don't know which kind of philosopher said it, it's more important to ask questions than is to have answers. And I never understood it until I actually started to live a life and work and all that kind of stuff. So it's interesting. It's a question that drives us, and for sure. But then I see, at least around me, there are a lot of, like, I can tap into my spiritual community for sure, but I see common people not being really driven by that. Like I have a strong sense of discovery, truth, purpose, like spirituality, but it's not for, I guess, everyone. Like some people are just happy to have their families doing their day-to-day and not thinking about it. And that what I have to decided to do. My view on this is like, I have to accept that, and it's part of their soul journey, and this is part of my soul journey. So we are all different, but I feel like still, even though there are a lot of seekers, I still feel there is not enough. But let's continue.
And of course, there are other questions in life, such as, are we alone in the universe? Is there anyone else out there? If you, on a very clear night, look up at the sky and see the millions and billions of stars that are out there, you have to wonder, am I really alone? Is this the only planet with intelligent life? Or is it possible that the universe is filled with life? That there's life literally all over the place? A huge question that we also ask ourselves is there a God? What is God? What does God look like? What's God doing? Do I have any kind of relationship with that God or the divine? So these are some of the really, really big questions that we ask. And this is what Trinity said to Neo, that it's the question that drives us. And I feel that it's these questions that drive us when we're not worrying about the basic things in life, like our job and our family, that these underlying questions are always there. And we just don't have time to look for the answers. Because Trinity says that the answer is out there. It'll find you if you want it to. So we've probably asked ourselves all of these questions on many occasions when we found ourselves in an introspective state of mind. But usually we just forget about it, and then we have to go to work the next day. So how much time have we dedicated in our life? It's a question we can ask ourselves right now. How much time in our lives have we dedicated to asking ourselves the question, what's my purpose? Who am I? What have I been put here for? Because if we're not looking for the answer, then the answer won't find us. Mm-hmm. And maybe the answer has already revealed itself to us, but we weren't looking for the answer, so we missed it altogether. Because if you're not looking for something and it's there, you'll just kind of ignore it. We won't find something until we're really looking for it. But finding the answers to these questions requires a very active endeavor. Usually things aren't just going to happen automatically. We do have to make some endeavor. And when we endeavor, then the universe, God, will reciprocate with our endeavor, with our desire, with our questioning, and then the answers will gradually start to become available to us. One of the most important concepts that we're going to explore right now is the concept of a spiritual teacher or spiritual guides and gurus. Both Neo and Arjuna are dependent on a teacher to bring clarity into their life. In Neo's situation, his first guru is Trinity. She contacts him first. She tells him about the questions. She tells him that the answer is out there and that it'll find him if he wants it to. And in Arjuna's situation, his guide becomes Krishna. Krishna also happens to be his friend. It also happens to be his cousin. And Krishna is somebody that Arjuna trusts very deeply. And so he realizes that he's also stuck in a frame of mind, looking at his family members who are ready to go into battle with him. He really doesn't know what to do. And now he's turning to Krishna, who can help him overcome this real dilemma in his life, this complete bewilderment. And so many times in our lives, when we get confused, we go through a difficult situation, we can't find the answer ourselves in many situations. And we find ourselves reaching out to a friend or a guide, some kind of counselor who can see our life with some objectivity. So the idea of a guru or spiritual teacher is a very, very important one from the perspective of the Bhagavad-Gita and broader Hinduism. And that same concept is communicated by the movie The Matrix. In the Bhagavad-Gita chapter 2, verse 7, Arjuna is speaking to Krishna and he says, Krishna, now I have become completely confused and very bewildered about my duty, and I'm losing all my composure. Please tell me what is best for me, and I will do that. So in chapter 4, verse 34, Krishna is telling Arjuna that one has to approach a spiritual teacher, inquire from them, and develop a relationship with them. And that actually, without having a relationship with a teacher, one cannot progress to the greatest degree in one's spiritual life. There is some progress that can be made, but one cannot reach completion without a teacher or guide or guru. Now, for some of us, this may sound a little uncomfortable, that I need to have, it's mandatory almost that I have to have a teacher. Why can't I just achieve the goal on my own? I've got the books, I can figure out some meditation practice and just move forward. I've done so many things in my life on my own. Why can't I achieve perfection in my spiritual life on my own? And to this, I would like to ask a question. What really was it in life that we've learned without some kind of guidance? Even when we learned how to put on our shoes, we learned that from our parents. How to use the bathroom, we learned from our parents. When we started school, every subject in school, we had a teacher. There was no subject that the students walked in, there was no teacher, there was just a book on the desk and a sign that said, study the book, and there's going to be a midterm in 6 weeks. No, there's always a teacher. If we play any kind of music professionally, we need a teacher to help us develop those skills. If we've ever played sports in a competitive way or in a professional way, then you know that you have to have a coach. All the Olympic athletes have a coach, and the coaches are usually twice their age. The coaches aren't better than the athletes, these young athletes, but the athletes realize that they need a coach because they don't want to develop bad habits. And they want somebody to be able to look at them objectively and point out the mistakes that they're making. Because we have a very hard time looking at our own selves and understanding the flaws that we have in our own practice, our own techniques. And so we need outside help for many things in life. We need help from others who are our guides and gurus. So the Bhagavad-Gita strongly emphasizes that if we want to make steady progress in our spiritual life and make it in such a way that we could finally reach that goal, that we will need the help of a guide or a guru. Because if we don't have the help of a guide or a guru, and we're just listening to our mind, then we could end up starting in the right direction, but we could go off track very quickly. And a couple years from now, we could find ourselves really off track. Whereas a person, a guru, could keep us back on track when we start swaying. So this is a very, very important concept that not only the Bhagavad-Gita talks about, but also the Matrix addresses this in a powerful way. So the Trinity becomes the first guru of Neo, and the next guru is going to be Morpheus. So
okay, I just want to pause here because I'm conflicted, and perhaps I don't have. I'm just going to share my thoughts. So I don't appreciate it on one hand, and I understand what he's trying to say on the other. About, and I guess that's teaching from Gita, and for me to really have an opinion, I would have to read that. But to me, you don't need a guru. You don't need anyone on one hand, okay? And I'll explain why. I feel you're God. You are a manifestation of God. We all can hopefully agree on that. If you come from this logic, you have a direct access to God because you're God, and you don't need a third party to assist you getting to God. So that's one part of the argument. However, people that I know that are spiritual, they would go, let's say, to development circles, etc. Because let's say if you are getting into the world of spirituality, you're met with a lot of, I think that world is more real than the world we live in the 3D world. And you need to understand about psychic protection and lots of many things that you could still, through your own guides, that you're able to channel. But even sometimes if you're able to channel messages and stuff, you can get psychic attacks, etc. So for that reason, you would have a guide. Now, I don't know where to choose here. It might be that both answers are correct, but that I just kind of wanted to share it as it's always hard to find out with him where I can pause. Let's continue.
As we continue in our spiritual life, we will also have many gurus. We won't just have one. There'll be people who introduce us to the spiritual path. Then there'll be people who help take us forward a little bit, like Trinity did her part, took him forward a little bit. She then takes him to Morpheus, who's going to become his primary teacher to help him achieve certain realizations that he needs to, so he can get clarity about his own path and his own life and his own practice. So the first time Morpheus and Neo communicate is over the phone. And Morpheus, the first thing he says is, "Do you know who I am?" And Neo says, "It's Morpheus." Because Neo has been looking for Morpheus for a very long time. He's been looking for that teacher who can bring clarity into his life and the purpose of his life. So as soon as he hears his voice, he knows this is Morpheus. He knows it's the right thing for him. And Morpheus says that I can guide you, but you must do exactly as I say. So this may sound a little strong, maybe a little forceful, but when we accept a teacher, then we have to be willing to do what they ask us to do. So Morpheus says that I'm not sure if you're ready to see what I want to show you. And this is very important, very interesting, because earlier we asked ourselves so many questions. Who am I? What's my purpose? How did I get here? What is God? Am I alone in the universe? Are there other people out there? And my question to you is, are we ready for the answer? Are we ready to receive the answer? How big is that answer going to be? How much will it change my perspective on life? How much is it going to change my paradigm of life? Is it going to shake me to the core? will I be able to live in society the same way as I have been living once I get the answer? Because the truth, or these answers, are very profound, and they could really change the way we see things and the way we interact with things around us. So appropriately, Morpheus says, I'm not sure if you're ready to see what I want to show you. Eventually, Morpheus guides Neo from his cubicle to the corner office because there are some police officers looking for Neo. And when Neo is in the corner office, surrounded by windows, he's like on the 20th or 30th floor, Morpheus says, you need to get out of here right away. Ultimately, it's your choice. You can follow me or you could get arrested by the police. And the police are looking for him because one possible reason is because he's a computer hacker and he sells computer secrets to other people. So Morpheus says, if you want to get out of here, if you want to get to where I am, you need to go outside the window, get to the scaffolding, and get to the roof. And at that time, Neo gets really confused because he looks out the window and he's 30 floors off the ground. And he jumps back in and he says, this is crazy. I can't do this. I'm going to get killed. Morpheus says, well, you have two choices, either to get to the scaffolding, get to the roof, or leave in their custody. So Neo starts questioning everything. Why is this happening to me? I'm nobody. And this is really interesting because we ask ourselves these questions. We want the answers to life and our purpose in life. And sometimes when the answers start to come, we wonder why they're coming the way they're coming. Because to get the answers, we sometimes have to go through some challenging situations. Because those challenging situations put us in a space in our life where we're humble and we're open to receiving answers. And in order for us to become humble and open to receiving answers, sometimes we have to go through some struggles in life. And this was a challenge for him. He was being asked to go outside onto the ledge of his building by someone he's never really met before, but someone he has faith in. And ultimately, he tries to go outside the window, and he tries to walk to the scaffolding, but he gets scared, he loses his courage, and in that moment of fear and uncertainty, he drops the phone, and phone falls down 30 stories. And he comes back inside the building, and at that time, the scene concludes with him being arrested and taken into custody by these police officers. Trinity finally takes Neo to meet Morpheus for the very first time. This is the first time now that they're going to meet face to face. And before Neo goes in to meet Morpheus, Trinity says something interesting. She says, be honest. Just two words, but such significance to these two words because he's about to meet his teacher. And she says, he knows more than you can imagine, which is the case if we go to a real experienced and seasoned teacher of any sort. They usually can understand where the student is at, what the student needs to do to improve, what habits, good and bad, the students have. So the idea for her was that just be honest with him, be straightforward, don't try to pretend to be someone that you're not. And that's an important lesson for all of us, is that as we approach a spiritual teacher, that we approach that teacher with honesty, with our honest intention, why we want a teacher. Having a teacher is not a fad that, oh, now I have a guru. You know, we're approaching a teacher because we really want to make advancement in our own spirituality. So she wants to make sure that he goes in with the right frame of mind. And when Neo enters the room, he meets Morpheus. Neo sits down on the couch. Morpheus sits down, and Morpheus says, you look like a man who accepts what he sees because he's expecting to wake up. So you remember these words, wake up, from the very first scene? The words wake up appear on Neo's screen, as he's sleeping at his desk. So Morpheus mentions that again, that you look like a man who accepts what he sees because he's expecting to wake up. So this is very interesting because he's suggesting that Neo is not taking the current reality so seriously because he's expecting to wake up to a new reality. It's kind of like if we've ever had this experience when we're dreaming about something, let's say it's a nightmare, or even if it's a positive dream, and we're about to wake up and we're in that state where we realize, oh, I'm actually dreaming. This is not real. So that's the kind of state Morpheus is describing to Neo, that you're on the cusp of waking up and you realize this is a dream. And I think many of us have had that experience when we're just about to wake up.
Mm.
We're not awake, but we realize that we're actually dreaming, and everything that was happening was actually just in our mind. So after making this observation about Neo, Morpheus asks Neo a very important question. He asks Neo, do you believe in fate? And Neo says no, because he doesn't like the idea that he's not in control of his life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can all agree with that. We all like to think we're in control of our life. None of us wants to think that we're not in control of our life. But if we really analyze our life and the way our life has been transpiring, we can ask ourselves the question, how much control have we actually had up until now? You know, if you look back 10 years and look at your life the way it is now, 10 years ago, is this where you expect it to be? Spiritually, financially, emotionally, career-wise, professionally? Is this exactly where you expect it to be? Very few people, when I've asked this question, have said, yeah, this is kind of where I expect it to be. Most of the time, people say this is not at all where I expect it to be.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not in control of our lives, but we like to think we are. And in one sense, to some degree, that's kind of an illusion. And at some point we do, as we mature in life, we kind of accept the fact that we're not so much in control. All we can do is try our best, but the outcome is really not in our hand. And then Morpheus continues by saying that the world has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. And he says that there's something wrong with this world. You've known it all your life. It's like a splinter in your mind driving you mad. I think that's just a really beautiful analogy, a splinter in your mind. Whenever we get a splinter in any part of our body, whether it's our hand or feet, it's kind of painful. We kind of want to get it out of there as soon as possible. It's unpleasant. And no matter what activity we're doing at that time in our life, if we have a splinter, that splinter demands our attention. Even if you're enjoying your favorite flavor of ice cream with a splinter in your hand, you're not going to be able to fully enjoy that ice cream if you've got a splinter in your hand. So if a splinter in our hand is distracting and painful, then what to speak of a splinter in the mind, which is what Morpheus is talking about. He's telling Neo that he has a splinter in his mind. So a splinter in the mind, I think what he's referring to is all the questions that we asked earlier. Questions like, who am I? What's my purpose? What am I doing here? How did I get here? Who is God? These are all splinters in our mind. And he says they're driving you mad. And I think that these splinters, to some degree or another, are driving us mad. We need to get the splinter out for us to be peaceful. If we can't get the splinter out of our hand, we're not going to be peaceful. If we don't get these deeper philosophical splinters out of our mind and really take time out of our life to address these questions of who am I and what's my purpose, I think they're going to constantly distract us. They're going to be painful. We're never really going to be satisfied and happy until and unless we remove the splinter from our mind. Morpheus continues to say that you are a slave, Neo, born into bondage. born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind. This is really powerful imagery that you're born into bondage. You are a slave, Neo. And according to the Bhagavad-Gita, what does it mean? Because the Bhagavad-Gita also suggests that we are a slave, that we are being controlled, by other forces. And the thing in our life that controls us the most, there's two things actually, our mind and our senses. We are fully under the control of our mind and senses. Whatever the mind and senses want, we go and get that thing. Even if we know that something in our life is unhealthy for us and it doesn't lead to anything very positive, actually it leads to something negative, if our mind is determined to get that thing, we will go ahead and get it. If the doctor told you to stop eating sweets, and every time you walk by a bakery, a sweet shop, and you get tempted and you keep eating sweets, even though you know it's bad for your health, it's bad for your wallet, you do it anyways, what made you do it? It was your mind and your senses. So unless we can learn to become free of the influences of the mind, we will remain a prisoner in this world to our desires, to our mind, and to our senses. And will remain a slave to these things. After explaining to Neo that he is a prisoner, that he was born into bondage, Morpheus finally holds out his hands. In one hand, he's holding a blue pill, and in one hand, he's holding a red pill. And he tells Neo that he has to make a choice, and that if he takes the blue pill, he'll wake up in his bed, and life will just go on the way it has been going on. Nothing will change. He says, if you take the red pill, I will show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. I'll show you the reality that you've been looking for many, many years. So Neo reaches for the red pill. And at that moment, Morpheus says, remember, all I'm offering is the truth. And this is so important because Morpheus is not forcing him to see the matrix. He's not forcing him or pushing him or scaring him into or making him feel guilty in any way. He's just encouraging and saying, ultimately, this is your choice. How far you want to go in your spiritual journey is your choice. That's basically what he's telling Neo. And that is also our choice. We also have the free will. Things to some degree may seem predestined, but we have at every moment the choice to make whether we want to pursue our spiritual life or whether we want to live life the way it's always been there. And that is a free will that can never be taken away from the living being, from all living beings. In fact, at the very end of the Bhagavad-Gita, after Krishna has finished instructing Arjuna about the nature of the soul, the nature of God, how we got here and what our purpose in life is, he tells Arjuna, deliberate on everything that I've told you, then do as you wish to do. That means he's giving Arjuna, and Krishna is God. He's telling Arjuna, you have the choice to follow the instructions and suggestions that I just gave you, or you can follow the dictates of your mind and senses and do what you wish to do. So he gives Arjuna the free will. He gives Arjuna a choice. God's giving the living being the choice to do whatever the living being wants, whether they want to be closer to God or they want to be further away from God. That is our choice, and it'll always remain our choice. So after Neo takes the red pill, then Morpheus takes him into another room and he sits him down on a different chair. And he asks him the question that, Neo, have you ever had a dream that seems so real that if you didn't wake from that dream, how would you know the difference between the dream and the real world? And that's really a fascinating idea because it almost makes us ask ourselves the question, are we living in a dream right now? Because when we're dreaming, that dream seems so real. We live it as if it were real. And if it's a nightmare, we wake up from that nightmare with perspiration all over our body, our heart's beating faster, we're breathing faster. That means that dream created a reality for our body. And our body responded with bodily symptoms in a way as if that was actually happening. So he asks Neo, have you ever had a dream that seems so real that if you didn't wake from that dream, how would you really know if you're dreaming or not? And that's a very important question that we have to ask ourselves. How do we know that this is all not just a dream? Well, according to broader Hinduism, it's suggested that we are living in somewhat of a dream, as we discussed very early on in our discussion, that this is not the complete reality, that the world that we're experiencing, that we're living in, is here. It is real right now. It's not real in the sense that it's very temporary, because matter and all things made up of matter are temporary. They're here today and they're gone tomorrow. So if something is here today and gone tomorrow, it's kind of like a shadow. A shadow is not always there. It's here once in a while. So when it's there, it's real. When it's not, it's just a shadow. It's no longer present. So our life is like that, and everything in this world is like that, that it's here right now, and eventually it will be gone. Everything that we own will eventually be gone. Our relatives will eventually be gone, and eventually this body will also disappear. But according to the teachings of the Bhagavad-Gita, we are eternal spiritual beings. We are the soul living inside this body. This is the first teaching of the Bhagavad-Gita. The first teaching of the Gita deals with reality. What is real and what is not. And the thing that's real is that we are the soul living in the body. So when the body dies, the soul continues to live on. The relationship between the body and the soul is like the relationship between a driver and a car. We are the driver of this car. When this car stops working, the driver will get out of this car and go into another vehicle. And that's exactly what happens to us when the body dies. We leave this body behind and enter into another womb of a mother and take birth again into this world according to our karma. And if we can understand that we are eternal spiritual beings and not just this body, that in itself, I think, is so relieving to know that we actually don't die. The Bhagavad-Gita describes who we are and what our nature is. Our nature is that we cannot be burned by fire, we cannot be withered by the wind, we cannot be moistened by water, and we cannot die when the body dies, and that there's never been a time that we haven't existed, and that we will always continue to exist. And so these teachings are so profound. They give us a new paradigm of our life. It helps us understand reality in a very new and different, and I think very wonderful way to understand that we are eternal spiritual beings, and that our purpose in life, we may have many purposes in our life. We may have many duties in our life. One duty is to get a good education, to get a good job, to take care of our families, to serve society, to serve the environment. At the same time, these are all wonderful and beautiful and important material duties. But at the essence, the core and the most important duty that we all have as living beings, as eternal spiritual beings, is to reestablish our relationship with the divine, God, Krishna, or however we want to refer to the divine. But that is our relationship, that is our ultimate duty, life after life after life, is to develop that relationship with God. Thank you very much.
Okay, very interesting video. Very interesting when it comes to talking about spiritual. I was just thinking, like, how do you, like, if let's say you're an atheist, and that's a question. So you're an atheist in Hinduism. Do you believe in Bhagavad-Gita? I can't. Do you believe in Gita? That's the question, because then if you believe in Gita, let's say, and part of my knowledge, the lack of, does that make you a Hindu? Because to me, if you, let's say, believe, if you're, okay, please do help me understand. If you're a Hindu, you guys say if you're a Hindu, you can be Christian, Jew, you can be atheist, but to me, these concepts don't work together, because to me, what Gita is teaching from that, and I haven't yet fully read it, is spirituality. It's your relationship with God, But how can you be a Hindu? How and be an atheist? That is the part that I don't understand. How can you be Hindu and be Christian at the same time, where Christianity teaches also a relationship with God, but on the basis of different principles? This is where I feel like I have a big gap. And if you could help me fill that in the comments below, how that is actually understood and practiced, that would be super, super helpful. So yeah, and I was also wanted to ask you, what did you take out of this video? What has specifically spoken to you, apart from them talking to me about the sweets that I shouldn't be eating now, which I am guilty as charged. I, just looking at my notes, and I think towards the end, when he was just talking about the fact that we don't die, and the thought occurred to me that, if we don't die, which I do believe that, this is obviously, we die in this reality, this body deteriorates, and like we take on another form. But if we really knew originally why we came here, and that we don't die, imagine what you could achieve if you would have that knowing and understanding. I think we all would be just like a go-getter. It's like, okay, I know that I don't know how much time I have in this reality, but like I want to achieve all of these things. I think it would perhaps give people a bit more motivation in life. But and when he talks about us being a prisoners to mind and senses, I think this is just so true. And to become disciplined in the world that wants you to be distracted 24/7, it is such a hard practice. And from that point of view, I understand when people also want to have a guide and support, etc. This is why in the West you have psychologists, life coaches, etc. So yeah, it's interesting. Food for thought. I hope, I think I'll close it down here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you've taken something away from this video for your life, whatever it is, I would be so curious to know. So if you're happy to share, please do in the comments below. And this will be it. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy, please give a thumbs up, share, like, and subscribe to this channel. And I'll see you in the next one. Until then, please do take care. Sending much love. Bye-bye.